Thank you, Stephen.
I
was going to say, you could tell who was in the session where we forgot, right?
So while we're waiting on a couple more folks to join, good morning, everyone. The formal name of this session, Engaging Students with Canvas Tools. So this is, as you guys can see, this is one of the larger sessions. So we are going to be going, once we get started in a minute, we are going to go ahead and put everybody on mute and keep them on mute until we get through the first, until we get through all the content at least one time. If you do have Q&As, please feel free to still ask them just in the Zoom chat. The reason that we like to keep everybody on mute during these larger sessions is because if we have a chance to get through all the content, we build in about 10 to 15 full minutes of being able to do Q&As and go back. And we'd rather be able to go and get a little bit more granular with you guys at that point. What this session is going to cover, this is one of the newer sessions for us. This is the first time that we're doing it as well. So bear with us as we try to just go down. You'll probably see Quayle and I actually going off of our notes a little bit more than we usually do, just to make sure we hit our punch list pretty well. For many of you who have seen other sessions as well, a lot of it might seem like as a repeat to you at first, because we're going to be going over, you know, those same Canvas tools we've talked about in other sessions, like assignments and discussion boards. We're going to be viewing it in a little bit different of a lens, though, this time around, and Quayle will talk more about that with each item that we speak to. But instead of just going through the ins and outs of, okay, here's where you put points when you're setting an assignment, Quayle is going to go into a little bit more under the hood pedagogical reasons of pedagogy strategies, more so, of how you can tailor your assignments or create your discussion board to really prime students to have a little bit more engagement and have a little bit more impact on them, so they can walk away with a little bit better of a learning outcome by just doing a couple of very small tweaks to the wording even that you use in your prompts to students. And you'll see what I mean by about that in a minute. So like I said, some of this you will probably have seen before. If we're going over, like I said before, if we're going over assignments and you see a couple of other drop downs that we're not speaking to, you're more than welcome on the TLC YouTube page. Please feel free to go back to say that particular training session where we fit for 55 minutes straight. We'll talk about just that one aspect. There's a whole range of topics that we're going to be covering today. I promise you we have a lot more granular details about them in some of the other trainings. And as always, please feel free to come to any of the drop-in sessions. We'll put that link up and those times up at the end of this as well. Quayle, am I missing anything so far?
No, you're good.
Any questions to start off with, guys, before I put everybody on mute, or are we good to go? Sweet. All right, let's lock and load.
Okay, so I'm going to stop my video and then I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to start, and everybody should see my Canvas calendars up on the screen. Just give me a thumbs up if you can see that. Okay, perfect. So we're starting with the calendar because, as we know, student engagement is really one of the key factors or key indicators for student success in their courses and their learning. And one of the most important things is to help keep students communicate to them really about the task that's in front of them and give them ways to help stay on top of those tasks and keep those tasks organized so that they're making those due dates and not missing those due dates, so that they're able to know what it is that they have to do so that they can participate as actively as they can. And so really the calendar tool can be very important for that, because it really helps keep students current and really helps them see the big picture. Because if they are taking multiple courses and they've got multiple assignment requirements in each of those courses, being able to see all of those different events and assignments and tasks in one screen really helps them to organize and keep on top of those tasks so that they're not missing out on those due dates. So as you can see from this calendar screen, you are able, as both an instructor and a student, to see up to 10 course calendars at a time in a single screen. Those calendar entries are color-coded, so each course is represented by a different color. So as the instructor, I'm able to kind of manage all of the different tasks that are coming up in my different courses. And as the student, I'm able to see what projects are due, what assignments are due, what events I have to attend for any given day and any given week. What's nice about this is that if you are using things like the assignments tool or the quizzes tool and the discussions tool in Canvas, if you add a due date to any of those items that you're creating, those items are automatically added to your class calendar. So you don't have to do anything extra to get these entries to show up on the calendar. But what's also nice is that you can manually add event entries. So if you want to remind students, for example, on this calendar that on the 20th and the 21st that we're going to be doing group presentations, you can add those entries manually. So they're not necessarily tied to a particular assignment in a course, but you can add that to your calendar to help trigger reminders to students that they would be able to see in Canvas as well. Any entries that appear here on the calendar will also appear on the assignments page in Canvas. It also appears at the course summary at the bottom of the syllabus in Canvas. And there is also a student to-do list that I'm going to demo in a few minutes that these items will appear on as well. Just a quick tip for instructors: if you've never used this calendar view before and you've set an assignment with a due date and you say I've got to move that due date, you can do that very quickly and easily by grabbing the assignment and dragging it to a new date. Ah, great. Let me log back in. New password. And back into the calendar. And this does take a minute to load, so just give me a second while we wait for that calendar to load. Any questions while we wait about using the calendar? Okay, here we go. So as I was saying, if you needed to change a due date, you don't necessarily have to go into a course and find that discussion and open it up and edit. You can simply drag it and drop it to a new date on the calendar, and it will automatically make those adjustments for you. So it is a bit of a time saver for you as well. As you notice, if I hover over any of these entries, they're clickable. I can click to access the discussion directly as a student. So again, I don't have to navigate out of the calendar into the dashboard, into the course. I can go directly to that discussion. And if there are also instructions or details that you've provided, those appear here in this window as well. So they really get a good idea of what is expected of them, what's coming up, what's due, right from this one calendar view. I'm going to switch to a new share, and I'm going to switch to the student perspective to talk about something called the dashboard to-do list. So again, we're looking at this from the student perspective, and what this does is it gives students an ability to track kind of on their own, owning their own learning. So it gives them a to-do list view of all of the different assignments that we just saw on that calendar view, but in kind of a check off to-do list, help me keep track of what I need to do on any given day. Each course is listed separately. Each assignment is also clickable. This is a particular announcement for that particular course. When you see the rocket ship icon, that lets me know that there's a quiz in that particular course that I need to take. It lets me know at a glance how many points it's worth, when it's due. And it also lets me know if I'm missing an assignment. So anything labeled in red means I've missed that assignment. As the student, at the top of my screen, there's an alerts menu, which they also call an opportunity center. And when I click that alerts menu, it gathers together for me in one screen a list of everything that I have either forgotten about, missed, and need to catch up on that will positively impact my grade if I go ahead and get it done. Anything listed as new is here. If I've decided to dismiss something because I've turned it in or I've made arrangements with my instructor, I can clear it from the list by clicking the X, and it will get added to the dismissed options in that secondary tab. If I want to view grades in a particular course, there is a grade icon at the top of my to-do list as a student. And I can click that very quickly and have an overview of how I'm doing in each and any of those classes that are listed on my Canvas dashboard. I see an overall grade as well as a link into the course if I want to view specific grades for specific assignments and groups and categories in that course. I also have the ability to add entries to my own to-do list. So if I want to keep a list of things, maybe there's some ungraded work, some readings that I have to do for a particular class, and I want to add this to my to-do list so I can keep track of everything that I need to do in a course in one space, in one area in Canvas. I can create my own items and add them to the to-do list and be able to keep track of those and check them off myself. If I've submitted and I'm looking through my list to see any work that I might have already completed, it'll be labeled as show one completed item. So as a student, I'm able to click to expand to see what that assignment is, lets me know that it's graded, lets me know the points I've achieved. And it's another way to stay on track of the things that have to be completed in that particular course. Again, anything that shows up on this to-do list was created by the instructor in the course by creating either a graded discussion or a graded assignment or a graded quiz, or if they've created to-do list items for ungraded things like pages or discussions. I also have the ability as a student to add things to this to-do list on my own. So I'm going to switch back to the instructor perspective, and I'm going to head into a course. So the next tool that we really want to talk about in terms of keeping students engaged is the announcements tool. And the announcements tool in Canvas is really pretty important because it allows you to quickly communicate with students about upcoming events that you want to remind them about. Maybe you want to post weekly announcements reminding them about the unit of study that you're going to be tackling this week, what the objectives are for this week. Maybe they've got a big project coming up and you want to post a reminder about that project, or give them some helpful hints or some additional content that might help clarify questions that have been raised in class. Maybe we've got to cancel class and you want to send out an immediate notification for them. The announcements tool can allow you to do all of that very quickly. What's also nice about the announcements tool is that you can incorporate media, video, audio. That could be video or audio that you create yourself so that you can include your voice and your face so that they're not just reading flat text announcements. You can actually include your personality and let them hear you and see you instead of just read. And it allows you also to incorporate media content that you didn't create. So if you found some useful tutorials that might be helpful for an assignment that's coming up and you want to send that out to them really quickly as a blast notification, you can do that. To create an announcement, and I'm just going to open this particular one, I've included video of myself at the top, as well as a video from YouTube that I wanted to share with students in this particular course. It's very easy to do that. I'm going to click Edit. Using the Rich Content Editor toolbar in the Assignments tool allows you to incorporate video that you've created yourself by recording and uploading media using the option in the toolbar that looks almost like the playback button. Then you can also use the external tool option to embed video from YouTube, Vimeo, if you've got content from the library, Illumira. You also have the ability to include text in your messages as well. One of the nicer features of announcements, and I make heavy use of this when I'm facilitating the teaching online workshop, is to schedule rollout in advance of announcements, because this bit of automation really helps you to keep engaged, especially when your time is short. This summer, we're very busy doing lots of training, hosting drop-in sessions, and so it is really nice when I'm teaching that teaching online workshop course that I can delay a posting. So I can build all of the announcements that I may need for a particular week and set it up to go at certain dates at certain times, so that it saves my time, so that I actually have time to respond to those discussion posts that are coming in and give good feedback when I'm grading assignments, because I'm not worried about remembering to compose and post an announcement at a certain day at a certain time. To do that, you simply want to select the delay posting option, and then you want to select the option to post at, and from the calendar, you would select the day, and you can even select the time where you want this particular announcement to post. And once you've set those options and click save, Canvas will automatically roll out this announcement at the date and time that you've selected. So you want to let technology help you out when it can, and so being able to schedule these rollouts in advance really helps you be efficient with your time. Any questions about announcements or any of those options? Okay. We're going to head over to modules next. And I really like to think of modules as kind of the structured backbone of your course, because in this modules area, you can really quickly build out your lessons, your chapters, your weeks very easily using the folder-like structures that are available to us in modules. But what's really nice about modules in terms of student engagement is that you can really help keep students focused on their tasks, and especially the ones that are relevant to them at this moment in time, by moderating their release and managing the pacing. So you don't necessarily have to leave all 14 modules if you're doing that on a per week basis for a course open to students at all times, because that can be kind of overwhelming and it might lead them to checking out. You can control their access to the contents in the modules a couple of different ways. The simplest way is you control it by publishing or unpublishing a module. So on this particular page, Module 1 is published and it will be available to students, but Module 2 is not. That gray circle with the line through it indicates that I have not yet published that module. So if I only want students working on Module 1, I don't want them working ahead, I want them focused on the content and the topics for that week, then I simply leave the remaining modules unpublished so that they're not looking ahead and not getting distracted by the projects that are coming up in upcoming weeks. Another way that you can control access to a module is by locking it until a certain date. So instead of having to remember again to come in and publish those modules on the dates when they should become available, you can schedule that all in advance and let Canvas handle that automatically. If I want to control that access automatically, I simply find my module. I want to click the icon in the top right corner with the 3 dots. And then I want to select Edit. When I'm in Edit, I want to select my Lock Until option, and then I can set the date by which that content should become available. So if I don't want students accessing week 2 until the 31st, I would simply select the 31st, and then on that date, the content would automatically become available. The other way that you can kind of control the pace or the release of content is to use requirements. And I also like using requirements because it also allows you to monitor progress once you've put those requirements in place. So when we're talking about requirements for this particular module, I have a bunch of them set, and I'm actually specifying that they have to complete everything in this module and they have to do it in order. So they cannot click the About the Instructor link until they've clicked that Start Here link, because I want to move them through the content in a logical order and when that makes sense to what I'm teaching or what I'm delivering in this particular course. So in this module, I've specified that they have to view all of the different content pages that I've added. And then there are 2 assignments and assessments they have to complete. One is the Introduce Yourself discussion, and I'm actually specifying that they have to submit to that assignment. And then the last one is the Start Here quiz, and I'm saying that they have to score at least an 80 to consider that requirement complete. And what that does is it forces students to step through the content in the order in which I want them to review it, and it also requires that they achieve a certain score on that particular quiz and submit to that particular assignment. So I'm really kind of forcing students through the content in the way in which I think it makes sense and they're going to get the most out of it. When I click update the module, you'll see that the complete all items is indicated at the top and it's all listed here. I can even use this module as a prerequisite for the next module. So until they've completed everything I've specified as a requirement for Start Here, they won't be able to access Module 1. So you could really control the pacing and the access of students through the content. I'm going to switch really quickly back to the student view just to show you what that looks like from the student perspective. So if I'm in modules as a student, I also am alerted that there are requirements by the complete all items at the top. And anything that has not yet been completed has that little circle, the little blank circle. Anything that I have completed as a student is listed with a green check. It tells me at a glance that I have viewed those options, and it tells me what I need to do here. It tells me I need to view this particular piece of content. So when I click the view Zoom tutorial link, it opens up that page of content. And when I head back to modules, I can see at a glance that I have fulfilled that requirement. And now at the top, I've completed all the items. I have a green check now instead of that red dash that was there before. Because I have completed the options here, I'm also now able to access the content in Module 1. Prior to completing, none of these links were clickable for me. So it really allows the student to kind of control and see what it is they need to complete, to stay focused on the task at hand and not worry about jumping ahead until they've completed the requirements in the module prior. I'm going to go back into instructor view. And we're talking about how you can view their progress in these modules. At the very top of your page, there's a View Progress button when you're in that modules area. When you click View Progress, it allows you to see the progress for each student in your course through the requirements that you specified. So I can see that for this particular student, there are still 3 items that the student needs to complete. If I look at the student that I just worked with, it tells me at a glance that they've completed that module successfully, as well as module 1. And if I look at another student, it tells me unlocked means it's open, but it shows that there is no progress yet for this student. So this student hasn't even begun to move through the content. So you're able to determine who hasn't checked in yet, so that if you need to reach out and say, hey, what's going on? I noticed you haven't accessed the content yet. You can do that very easily. You can also see what might be hanging them up. If everybody is having trouble, scoring at least an 80 on that quiz, maybe there's something going on with those quiz questions, or there's a topic that they're all struggling with on that particular quiz that's preventing them from achieving that goal. So you can get a lot of information that will help you work with the students and keep them focused and engaged in the content just by monitoring this progress. Any questions about the options in modules? John, let me know.
One question that just came in I didn't get a chance to respond to. Is it possible for a whole class to view the module progress? Oh, to see the whole class view of the module progress.
Oh, instead of seeing it student at a time?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the way it is designed is that it shows it to you one student at a time. There are other places, there are access reports in Canvas. We're not going to show those today, where you can kind of get more of a whole class picture, but it doesn't necessarily give you the page by page look at it the way we're seeing it here in the module progress. That's something we can show maybe at the end if we have time. Okay, anything else? Okay, so we're going to head over to assignments. So you use assignments in Canvas when you want them to be able to submit work either online in Canvas using the options that are available, or when you want to create the columns in the gradebook for work that they might be doing in class. But assignments have some options that maybe you haven't explored yet or you haven't thought about yet that we want to kind of highlight today. So we're going to go in and we're going to take a look just at creating an assignment. And the first thing we always want to talk about are the submission options. And one of the best ways to kind of help students be engaged with the content or engage with what's going on is sometimes giving them the option for how they would like to express that they've achieved these assignments or completed these. Give them the option. So if you've got an assignment, give them the ability to either record a presentation or write a paper or submit it in a way that maybe you haven't thought about, as long as it does demonstrate that they've achieved the objectives that were set for the assignment. Giving them the option in what format they submit it sometimes helps to improve those outcomes and get better results from students. So when you're asking students to submit online, you don't have to just say file upload. You can say they can submit a file or they can submit a media recording. So maybe they've recorded a presentation and they're presenting their findings in that way instead of giving you a typed written paper. Maybe there's a way that we can just simply ask for, a text entry instead of the file upload and the meeting recording, or give them all four if it makes sense for that particular assignment to allow them to submit in different formats. Again, it depends on the assignment. It depends on what the outcomes and the objectives are for that assignment. But if it makes sense to give them options, give it a try. You might be surprised at the results you get. The other option that you can think about is differentiating the assignment. Every student has different needs. Maybe you want to give more time to a student who might need more time. There is a reason why different groups maybe get to submit at different times to the same assignment. The differentiation options that are available for the assignments allows you to do that. You can set individual due dates, individual availabilities on any of the assignments that you're creating, and you can do any number of different subsets using these options. So for example, if the due date in general is the 17th, we would go ahead and set that due date to the 17th for everyone. But if we had a need to maybe go in and change that for a student or two, we would simply click the add button down here at the bottom. And then from the assign to field, we would select the student or students who require a different due date. And I can set that different due date for that particular subset of students here. Again, if there's another student who for some reason needs something different, I can specify a completely different due date for that student, all for the same assignment, and Canvas will keep track of that for you. It's not something that you have to come in and manage to remember who's supposed to submit when. You simply use the assign to options, the due date options, and this add button to create as many different subsets for these due dates and availabilities as you need. I'm going to go ahead and click save really quickly. And we're going to talk really quickly about rubrics. I know a lot of instructors make use of rubrics when assessing student submissions for work and projects and things that they're doing. Canvas does have a rubric tool. You are able to build rubrics in Canvas that you can attach to an assignment. So if you want to add a rubric to an assignment, that button is located at the bottom of the assignment page, and it allows you to communicate the expectations for the assignment ahead of time when you attach a rubric in Canvas, because it is displayed to students. They are able to see it prior to submission, so they know what it is that you're looking for before they start working. It also has the added benefit of saving time when you're grading, because you are able to use the rubric for grading in the Speedgrader. To attach a rubric to an assignment, you simply click that add rubric button. We could either build it on the fly here using the options available, or if you created it previously, you can click the find a rubric link, locate the rubric that you want to use, and then you simply click the use this rubric button. Once the rubric is attached, you can tell Canvas that you want to use this rubric for grading. You can also choose to remove the points. So if you want students to focus on the feedback and not necessarily the numeric score that you're providing them, you could choose to remove the points as well. For this purposes, I'm just going to say use this rubric for grading. Then you just update rubric. Okay. Once the rubric is attached, it is visible to the students at the bottom of the assignment page. So again, they're able to review and see what's expected of them before completing and submitting the assignment. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about when it comes to assignments are peer reviews. I don't know if you've had the opportunity to use peer reviews, but it is something that is available that can be turned on for both assignments and discussions in Canvas. And it really allows students to give each other that feedback kind of in a really safe and controlled space. It can help improve their communication skills as well as giving them the opportunity to gain quality feedback from each other. To set up the peer review, we're going to go into an assignment here that I've created for that purpose. And we're going to edit. Setting up peer review requires you to scroll through the assignment options to the peer review section and select that peer review checkbox. So Canvas will give you two options: to manually assign the peer review or to automatically assign the peer review. If you select automatically, it wants you to specify the number of reviews per user. It wants to give a due date. I choose to recommend saying just select manually so you don't have to commit to those things right off the top. You can always set those later. And then you have the option whether the peer reviews should appear anonymously. If you turn this on, it just means that students don't know who they're reviewing or who is reviewing them. It sometimes tends to allow them to be more honest in their feedback. It allows them to think more critically about that because they're not worried about upsetting a friendship or not wanting to be as honest because you know that person and you don't want them to be upset with you. So the students will be anonymous, but as the instructor, you are always able to see who has completed the peer review and who it was that they were reviewing. So they're not anonymous to you, they're only anonymous to each other. Once you've specified that peer review should be required and you've selected your options, you click Save. And then you have access to the peer review link at the top right-hand side of that assignments page. When you click peer review, those same options I mentioned that you could come back to is here on the right-hand side. So if you want to automatically review a certain number of reviews per user, you can. You can also manually assign, which I did in this case, where I simply selected from a drop-down list the student for each of the student that they are going to review. So you can pair them if you know who you want to put together. If you want to automatically do it so that Canvas does it randomly, you have that option as well. You can delete peer reviews or cancel. You can also assign multiple. So if you want each student to review two others, you can do that as well by giving them another student by selecting the other student from the list and clicking add. So yes, they can review multiple times for different students in the class. Really quickly, I'm going to switch to the student view so that you can see what this looks like from the student perspective. So if I head over to assignments and I head over to peer review, I've submitted this assignment as a student. So again, you can see I have access to the rubric at the bottom that I could have reviewed prior. At the top, it lets me know I submitted. It shows me the file I submitted, but then it also lets me know that I've been assigned a peer review. And as you can see, it shows up anonymous user. I can click that link. The person I need to review has not submitted yet, which is why the no submission shows up. But this is the place where I am able to provide text-based feedback. Because the rubric has also been attached to this particular peer review, there's a show rubric option here at the top. So as the student, you can encourage the students to use the rubric to provide feedback to each other if you've created it and attached it to the particular assignment as well. So as you know, the student, if I was reviewing, I could select from the rubric and save my comments. And that is saved later for both the student I reviewed to review, as well as for the instructor to look and see how I went through that rubric for that submission. I also have the ability to leave a media comment. That would kind of nullify the anonymity of the peer review, so you want to use that carefully if you want to preserve that. You also have the ability to attach files here. So pretty much a lot of the same options you have as the instructor when grading are available to the students when they are performing peer reviews for each other.
We've had a few questions, and it's funny because we had this come up last week as well. With regards to, so if I'm going to set a peer review assignment to students, can't I set that as an assignment with a due date and a point value to be to essentially say, okay, you're going to get points for doing a peer review, and the peer review is due by this date. Unfortunately, that's not currently a feature within the peer review functionality of Canvas.
Correct.
I will say peer review wasn't really something that Canvas did a lot of. We've seen the past year, they made it a little bit cleaner. So that might be something kind of on the roadmap, but is not currently a feature to set a due date for peer review.
Okay. Anything else? Because I'll switch back.
Switch on back.
Okay. So I'm going to switch back. And I'm just going to head over to grades really quickly. And I'm going to go into the Speedgrader for that peer review. Okay, yeah, no, I'll come back to this once I've had a chance to actually do that. So I'm going to head back to the assignments. Any questions about setting up that peer review and how you access? So again, once you've enabled a peer review, a link to that appears on the right-hand side, right underneath your Speedgrader link, so you can always get in and make changes and manage the peer review that you've set up. Okay, so the next tool we're going to talk about is discussions. And so in an online course, in a hybrid course, there's heavy use really of the discussion tools. And a lot of people use it pretty much in the same way, where maybe you post a question, students respond, they've got to respond to at least one or two classmates, you know, so post once, reply twice, and that's really kind of the typical use of the discussion boards. But students can kind of get bored with that pretty quickly. And there are ways that you can bring life to the standard online discussion so that it's encouraging interaction or encouraging inquisitiveness from students. And it's just about thinking about what you want to achieve and maybe thinking outside of the box and using some of the options and discussions to go about it a little bit differently. And so one of the first ways to kind of encourage engagement in a discussion and encourage some differences from students when they are composing responses is really very simple. When you're creating a discussion in the options area, there's a checkbox that says users must post before seeing replies. And what that really does is kind of two things. It prevents copying and pasting from one another so that you are sure that students are working to critically think and come up with their own responses, and they're not plagiarizing and copying from the student who submitted prior to them. It's also a great way to eliminate the I agree with all of the above type responses. So if you want students to really think about their response and come up with that original response and really engage with the content, choosing this checkbox prevents them from seeing the submissions that any other students have posted before them, so that they're really engaged with the content and not just copying and regurgitating what they've seen above. Something else that you could do with the discussion instead of the traditional post and reply is there is an option here to allow liking. And if you turn that on, you can use that for quick quizzing or polling of students in the discussion board. So if you want to share ideas about, you know, projects that they might need to be completing coming up, and allow them to vote them up by allowing them to use that allow liking, it really is a nice way to engage them with a discussion board in a way that's different than they have traditionally. So quick questions, quick polling, allowing them to indicate what they like and don't like about a particular topic coming up, or just to encourage them to like what students have shared before them without requiring them to compose and post those responses, allows them to engage with that discussion board in a way that they haven't before. Another thing that is interesting is that same record upload media. We've talked about this a lot in a lot of the different other sessions we've covered in Canvas, but that record upload media option really allows you to create video discussions. So students are really comfortable with creating quick videos and documenting their life via social media. So why not let students do that in the discussion as well? Take advantage of their comfortability with those pieces and allow them to incorporate video components into their discussion. So maybe you're having them do a meet and greet. Maybe they're doing virtual debates, and instead of reading a whole bunch of text and typing a whole bunch of text, you can allow them to record those responses so that everybody can watch them and reply with video as well. The recordings can be done from their computer, it can be done from their tablets, it can be done from their smartphones. So it doesn't require that they have to have the computer with the webcam installed. If they have a smartphone, they can contribute very quickly on the fly as well. The other thing that you can think about enabling when you're creating discussions is creating them as group discussions instead of whole class discussions. Smaller discussion groups, really, research shows, best practices shows that it's more conducive to critical thinking and higher order learning than all class discussions. When you put them in those smaller groups, there's more equal participation from students across the board, because instead of you having to read or compete with 30 other opinions, 4 or 5 allow students to kind of blossom and really contribute into the discussion in a way that you may not have seen when you've used this with the whole class. So, you know, if you want to alternate whole class discussions with small group discussions, you might find that you're seeing more engagement in your discussions in that way. It also increases student satisfaction with class discussions. Less postings for them to monitor and manage and respond to and read when you allow them to do it in that small group setting. When you enable the group discussion option, you should either have created the groups ahead of time in the people's area in Canvas, or you can create it on the fly here using the new group category. Once you've selected a group, it automatically creates this as a small group discussion so that the small groups have access to the discussion in a private way, so that all of the posts from those particular group members are only visible to those group members and the instructor. So as the instructor, you're always able to see the participation from all of the small groups, but within the groups as a student, I'm only able to see the responses of my group mates. I'm going to hit save really quickly. Once you've created a group discussion, again, the links to the individual groups are available to you as the discussion. If I'm a student, I only see a single link for the group that I am in. With discussions, you can also attach rubrics, but unlike with the assignment, you'll notice there is no add rubric button here at the bottom of this discussion. It's kind of buried. You have to look for the edit settings options here at the top right corner, which is the button with the 3 dots. And then let me edit this because I didn't specify that this is going to be graded. So again, make sure you do that. And once you've specified that it's going to be graded, now you have the ability to add a rubric. So the same steps we followed when we added the rubric to the assignment, where you can create the rubric from scratch, or you can find a rubric that exists already, and then say use this rubric. And now it has been attached to the discussion. So again, students are able to see how they are going to be evaluated for their participation in this discussion. And as the instructor, I'm also able to grade with this rubric in the Speedgrader in that way. So one idea that I kind of like to share when it comes to discussions is that if you've ever had the need for students to keep a paper and pencil journal, whether it's a science journal or a writing journal or a reading journal, you can use the discussion tool to kind of facilitate that in the Canvas space. And what it does is it gives students a private place where they can either type a written journal, they can record an audio or video journal on either a weekly, daily, or monthly basis, whatever it is you're requiring. And because we use the discussion, we can specify that it is a graded discussion so that it also attaches to the Speedgrader in the gradebook so that you can review their posts, which are going to be date and time stamped, so you can see that the entries are made on time and by whatever due date you're requiring, and you can assign a grade for that journaling. And so to set something like that up in Canvas, you would want to head over to your people area. And so in this particular class, I only have a handful of students. If you have 20 students in the roster, then I would recommend creating more groups than you need, so that if you have students who are added to the roster after you've created this assignment, you're very quickly and easily able to add them to their own personal journal. But I would create a group set. Let's call it journal. And let's just say, if there's 10 students in the class, say split the group into 15 groups automatically. And it will randomly assign. So you'll see it created 15 groups called journal. Students were assigned randomly to those groups. And now I can head back to discussions. I can add a discussion. I can call it personal reflection journal. And then I can provide the prompts. What is it that you're going to be asking them? Are you reflecting on what you learned, what you struggled with, what you're looking forward to, what you would do differently on a particular assignment of the week? Whatever your prompt would be, you would provide those instructions here in the text area at the top. There's no need to select must post because each student is working privately and individually in that journal, but we do want to select graded so that it is tied to the gradebook. And we do want to specify that it is a group discussion, and we want to make sure we select journal from the list. If I am going to award points for them to complete this reflection journal throughout the semester, again, I just want to put a point value in. This is a point where you may not want to put a due date here on this assignment. This might be a situation where you add to the calendar the individual due dates for each reflection journal each week, or you could come in and change this due date every week if you wanted to. So we would set it to the date where the first journal entry is due for now, and then once that due date passes, we can update that here, or we can manually add the entries for each journal submission to the calendar directly to the calendar. And then when we're finished, we hit save and publish. And what that will do is create the different journals for each student that I can monitor and respond by going into the individual links. Students are able to update and add entries to this journal all semester long, and I can give them feedback and grades for using the Speedgrader and the gradebook in Canvas. So it's one way to do a journal type assignment in Canvas. It's not the only way. There are other tools that we could probably use to do that, but I just wanted to show you a different way to use discussions than maybe you've thought about or tried in the past. Any questions about that? Okay, so what we're going to talk about next is the Google LTI. So you might have noticed an announcement popping up in Canvas last week or so, letting you know that we've added the Google LTI to the Canvas environment here for everybody. And what that allows you to do in Canvas is a couple of different things. It allows you to set up different ways for students to collaborate using either the collaboration tools in Canvas or setting up collaborations in different ways in the Canvas environment. It also allows you to create Google Cloud assignments. And it also allows students to be able to submit 2 assignments from files that they might be storing and creating on their own individual Google Drives. So we're going to talk about collaborations first because, you know, giving students the opportunity to collaborate and work together and interact is a big piece of student engagement. They don't feel like they're floating alone in this course when they're able to interact with each other in different ways. And creating collaborations allows them to do that. It gives them one space where they can go in and contribute to maybe a collaborative document. Maybe there's a group project that they're working on and they're producing this document, this item that you will grade and review for them. And so when we're in collaborations, if I select Google Drive, which should now be an option for everyone since we've added that Google LTI to the system in Canvas, you now have the ability to select either a Google Doc, a Google spreadsheet, or a Google presentation that students can collaborate on and work on together. So for example, if I want them to create a presentation, I'm going to select that option. And then I simply give it a name. So group presentation. That's right. And then I simply select who needs to work on this collaboration together. I can select individually from the list of students who are in my roster, and or if I have created groups in Canvas, I can also select groups. So if I want that particular group to work on this particular collaboration, I can select them from the list. And then when I click submit, it will create this document in the Google Drive, and it will allow the students who are on that particular team or that particular group access to that as collaborators so that they can edit and make changes and revise and build that presentation together. If I needed to create a different collaboration for a different group, I would simply click submit to get this one created. It creates that presentation in Google Drive and my students now have access to it. And if I come back to Canvas, the link to that collaboration now exists. So it is only visible to me as the instructor and to the students in that group. If I need to create a different presentation for a different group of students, I simply start a new collaboration. Again, walk through the steps, Google Drive, presentation, give it a name, and then just select a different group. So it is really easy to create collaborations. Once you've allowed collaborations to be used in your class, students can also create collaborations, so they can head off and work on their own. It does not have to be driven by the instructor, which kind of gives them, you know, a little bit more owning of what's going on. They don't have to wait for you to set it up. They can go off and create those together and work on those assignments that require collaboration together. Any questions about collaborations, the tool itself? Okay, we'll head back to assignments to talk about cloud assignments and what you might want to use those for. So if you have students working on maybe lab reports, or there's graphic organizers that they need to complete, or they're working on data collection, there's a tool that you want them to fill out and use for that data collection. If you've got templates for an assignment that you want everybody to follow, you can set that up as a Google Cloud assignment and create it one time. Canvas will automatically via Google create a copy of that template for every student in the class so that it is submitted in the format in which you need it to very quickly and very easily. So for example, I'm going to create an assignment. And from the submission type, instead of online, we're going to select external. And when we do that, we're given the opportunity to find what we're looking for. And because we've added that Google LTI, we also have the option now to do a Google Drive Cloud assignment in that list. And when I select that option, it gives me access to my Google Drive. So you would have access to your Google Drive. And you would find the file, the template, the document, the spreadsheet, whatever it is that you need or that you've created for use for this particular assignment. You would select it from the list, click Submit, click Select, and then you have the same options that you have for any other assignment. What's the due date? How many attempts are allowed? Who is this assigned to? And I'm going to go ahead and save and publish. What it does is it attaches that file to this assignment. It gives each student their own version, their own copy of this particular document or spreadsheet or presentation that they are actually able to work on and complete right within the Canvas environment. And then they can actually submit from right within the Canvas environment. So they can access, complete, and submit without having to leave this Canvas space. And when it's submitted, you get a copy of each student's template, spreadsheet, document submitted to Speedgrader for your review. If you are interested in attaching a rubric for grading to one of these assignments, you would need to create the assignment first as a regular Canvas assignment, attach the rubric, and then come back in and set it up as a cloud option. So that's just the one little gotcha if you're interested in using rubrics. Attach it first and then create it as the cloud assignment, because it won't let you attach the rubric once you've saved it as a cloud assignment. So another option maybe for using Google Docs in the Canvas environment is if we head back to discussions, there's a way that you can embed a data sheet maybe in a discussion at the top of the page so that you can have students work on and complete the data sheet right in the screen at the top, and then they can use the option to reply to post reflections or discuss the trends or the results that are seen in the data sheet. So there are ways that you can include Google in ways that are not a collaboration or in ways that are not cloud assignments that can really help engage students in a course. So again, if I'm working within this course and I want to embed a Google Doc or a Google spreadsheet in this particular discussion, that external tools option in my rich content editor gives me access to the Google Drive option. And just like I just did, once that this opens up and shows me my Google Drive, and just any questions while we're waiting, John? Because it looks like my internet is being...
No, the Google LTI can run some slow sometimes when you're running it through the rich content editor.
There we go.
Here it goes.
So again, just like before, I have access to my Google Drive. And I can find the sample sheet that I want to embed in my discussion. So it will embed that here at the top for all the students to review, update, complete, whatever it is that you've asked them to do with this. Again, I can then set it up like a discussion. I want to allow threaded replies. Students have to post before they can see the reply. This is going to be graded. And how many points is it worth? And then we have a way that students are engaging with each other by completing and working on the Google spreadsheet that's here at the top of the discussion, and then following my instructions, they can again further engage with each other by completing and responding to whatever my prompts are for this particular discussion. So it's using the tools that are available in Canvas just in a little bit of a different way than you might have been used to previously. Any questions about that? Okay, so 2 more topics and then we'll probably have good time to answer questions. So we're going to talk about the Speedgrader really quickly. And so it's really important to be able to give students feedback and quality feedback. And you want to kind of avoid making it all about the grade, because if all they're looking at is the grade, then they're not really getting a whole lot out of that feedback. And so by adding comments and adding feedback and annotating their work can improve their outcomes tremendously. And so when you're working, and I'm going to pick a different assignment because that was set for peer review. Let's pick the lab report. Okay, so when you're working in Speedgrader, you have the ability to attach the rubric and work with the rubric with that assignment. You also have the ability to provide comments. You can also annotate depending on the format of the document that's been submitted using Doc Viewer by providing text, providing audio, providing video comments on the assignment right within the window here on the left. And on the right, again, you can provide a numeric score. You can also grade with a rubric that you may have attached, and you have the ability to provide comments. You can actually instruct students to use the comment box upon submission. Maybe ask them to reflect on the assessment that they're submitting and completing, or maybe ask them what questions they might still have, or what grade would you give this, or what is one thing you'd like people to take away from this. So you're giving them the opportunity to reflect on the submission that they are getting ready to submit to you. And they can do that using the same options you have. They can record audio and video, and you can respond with audio and video, or you can simply use the text field to use text-based comments here. And it allows you to actually build a stream of feedback and conversation between the student and yourself about the assignment that they've recently submitted to you. Questions about the Speedgrader and the ability to use the rubric as well as the annotations. I want to find a submission. Give me a second to talk a little bit about the Doc Viewer and the annotation. Let's head over to the Speedgrader here. So we talked about this Doc Viewer, and when students are submitting a Word doc, a PowerPoint presentation, a PDF file, a spreadsheet, you have the ability to use the tools that are available in the Doc Viewer to annotate directly on the student's submission. You can draw on the submission, you can highlight, you can create bubble comments, you can strike through and provide comments. So you have the ability to really give them rich feedback directly on their submitted file. What's nice about this is that you can download the annotated document as a PDF if you wanted to share it with students via email. But students have the ability to view this annotation directly within the Canvas window. What's nice is Canvas will let you know if students have viewed that annotation directly at the top of that Speedgrader window. So you don't have to wonder, did the student take a look at all of this wonderful feedback that I gave them? Canvas will indicate to you whether or not that feedback has been viewed. So if you don't get the notification that the student has viewed the document and you want to make sure they review all of the feedback you've provided so that they can improve on a future submission, you can reach out to the student. You can send them this annotated PDF that I just downloaded to say, hey, I didn't see that you were able to check out the comments I provided. Please take a look at this document. As the student, and this is something we like to point out, I'm going to switch my share. And I'm going to go into my grades as the student. That particular assignment was the research paper. So sometimes students stop right here at this grade stage. They look for the numeric score. They might remember to click the bubble to see if there are any comments that the instructor provided, but that annotated feedback is not seen on this screen in the grades for students. They need to actually click the title of the assignment, and then they actually need to click the link that says View Feedback. Once they've done that, they are displayed a view of that annotated document. So if you're not seeing that notification that students have viewed the feedback, then students have not clicked through to this screen to actually review the comments and the annotations that you've provided. So you can either remind them to go into grades and remind them how they can do that, or you can send them that PDF file that you can download from the Speedgrader window. So again, the option to do that is at the top left of the Speedgrader if you're interested. Any questions about that? Okay, so the last topic that we're going to talk about is how to be connected and how to engage with students when you're not in the classroom. And in Canvas, the way you do that is you use conferences or Zoom. And so again, conferences is a built-in tool, and you'll see that in the course menu of this course. It is built into Canvas, and it makes use of Big Blue Button for the live video conference part of the tool. You can create conferences in Canvas for office hours. You can create conferences for live lecture. You can allow students to create conferences if they want to collaborate in real time on group work or projects or assignments. Students can do that as well. And you can really use conferences for any reason where you'd want to meet synchronously or live within the Canvas environment. Some limitations to conferences are that recordings are only available for 14 days. So if you are interested in recording the session, the live session that you're interested in having, or if you're interested in any type of recording that should be available for more than 14 days, we're actually going to recommend that you use Zoom instead. The other reason that you might not want to use conferences is if you're interested in inviting guest speakers or guest lecturers to the live session. You would not be able to do that with conferences. Only registered students and the instructor are able to participate in a conference in Canvas. So for that purpose as well, we would recommend using Zoom instead. If you are interested in using Zoom, you'll notice I have the link in my course menu for Zoom. Clicking that link gives me access to the options to schedule a new meeting. If I've already scheduled meetings, I have the ability to start those meetings right from the screen. Students would have the ability to join those meetings from this screen. And you can really use Zoom to record lectures that you want them to play back at a later time, to host live synchronous class sessions, to invite guest lecturers into the course, to host it for open office hours. And you know, if you are doing synchronous sessions and you want students to work on small group problem solving, or if you want to kind of mimic when you would do think, pair, share in your classroom, or any types of those active learning activities that you would do synchronously that you're trying to figure out how may I do that with this new remote situation that we're facing in the fall. Zoom is a great solution for that, and Zoom allows you to create breakout rooms where you can assign smaller groups of students together to do that small group work and that small group interaction privately before bringing them back into the bigger session where they could share what they've done or ask questions for clarification. So again, conferences and Zoom give you that live interaction with students that allows you to kind of connect outside of the classroom if you're working remotely, or if you're doing the hybrid and you're trying to figure out how are we going to interact and connect with each other when we're not meeting in the classroom. The breakout room session is something that we like to work with folks, and we can encourage you to join our drop-in sessions so that we can demo that with you. I can also demo that with you in this session if you're interested. We can create a couple of breakout rooms and send you guys off to experience that from the student perspective if you think that would be helpful. And John, if you're seeing that in the chat, let me know.
No, what I am gonna, you're done going through new topics, right?
Yes.
Okay, so before we go into the Q&A for everybody, actually no, you went over the two things I was gonna ask you to go back and go over: creating groups and something else. So I'm gonna go ahead and unmute all, or at least, excuse me, I'm gonna allow everybody to be able to start unmuting themselves. And I wanna go back to Bonnie who had a question earlier on, and I'm realizing I might have just misunderstood when I read it quickly. Bonnie, can you go over your question again when it comes to modules and dates on the calendar?
So I guess what I was wondering is if you had any thoughts about whether it's a good idea or not a good idea to link the module on the calendar. I've not really used the calendar, so it's just an interesting experience for students. And
do you mean like the available from like the module unlock dates, or like this is like a to-do list item?
Like a to-do list.
Dates?
Yeah. So okay. Just to create an event and then link it to the module so that it's right there on the calendar.
What you could also do, and it kind of depends on what and I'm going to just share really quickly again. So if I head into modules and I go maybe to this first document in module 1, if I click edit, there's a nice little checkbox here that says add to student to do. And if I tag it with a date, it will add that to the calendar. So instead of linking the module itself, you can tag the pieces of the module as kind of maybe a suggested, you should read this today, this, just as reminders. It will put it on the calendar. It won't show up in your grade book because it's not a graded assignment, but it will put it on the calendar, so it will trigger those notifications and reminders to students in the Canvas environment. Does that make it more confusing, or does that answer the...
I mean, my personal recommendation is use the to-dos sparingly if it's not a deliverable, because then when it's happening, if you kind of go gung-ho with it, students won't end up looking at it for your class, and if they feel like it's just information overload, and then it kind of loses the meaning.
Yeah,
but
that's what I was wondering.
Students might not be submitting something, but they actually have to do something else. Like, for example, talk to your group members about what the plan is going to be for working on this thing in class today.
Yeah.
There's nothing to turn into you, but they need to make sure
you want that on the calendar. Yeah.
Okay.
Guys, a new one for me was the fact that on the students' individual posts, you could actually post video feedback. I'd not seen that before. That's great. Yeah. My question is that the best way to provide feedback to a student? So let's say, for example, the feedback isn't related to that specific post, but you wanted to connect with that specific student using that video technology. Is that the best way to do it, or is there another way to do it, which I guess there may be?
Oh, so you were just asking, like, how can I send like a student a personal message almost?
Yeah, on the video message rather than actually it being text.
So if you've specified that the discussions are going to be graded, you can give that student that video feedback from the Speedgrader. It does not have to be done within the discussion itself. So you can do it that way so that it is private between you and the student, and it's not something that everybody in the class is seeing. Okay, but you would need to make sure that that discussion is marked as graded so that you can do that.
Okay, so if you do it within the Speedgrader and it's the graded thing that other students can't see it.
Correct.
And is that the best? Let's say that you're even talking about something that's unrelated to that specific post. Is it nonetheless still best to do all of that through the Speedgrader on that or any other post?
You could do it as an assignment instead of a discussion board.
Okay.
If
but
that would make...
it would be through one of those rather than a specific, here's the student in general, here's the video that I can click for that student. It actually has to be as it were.
Because you need an entry in the grade book.
Okay. All right.
In order to get into Speedgrader.
Okay.
I want to go back to Ivan earlier about your post before seeing replies question, because I think I butchered that answer for you.
So you're wanting me to re-ask it? Is that what you're saying, John?
Did I? But I don't think I answered you well.
Yeah. So I'll create a discussion and then on, for example, a play that we're discussing in class, and then I'll post 4 or 5 questions about that play, and they all have to answer a certain number of questions and respond to a certain number of their peers' answers. Mm-hmm. I'd love to know if I post must reply before.
Users must post before, yeah.
If I do that, since I've got 4 primary responses, must they respond to one of the primary responses before they can see responses to the other primary questions? Does that make sense?
So when you create those questions, are they all in a single discussion? Do you put all 4 questions at the top?
Yes.
Yeah, so they have to post something. And as soon as they post something, they're going to see the answers from everybody else based on
To
what
all
they
the other
chose.
questions.
Correct.
To the other 4 questions. Yeah, that's
Correct.
what I thought. I just wondered if there was an end around to that. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
Okay.
Those are the only questions that I wanted to go back to at the end. So for anybody else who wants to start chiming in with questions, please feel free to do so.
I have a question about annotating an assignment in the Speedgrader,
Okay.
which is essentially what you can do in Microsoft Word and in Google Docs, right?
Correct.
What I don't know is what it looks like for a student if they're going to download that document with my annotations to use to revise it later. What those annotations look like. Are they equivalent to what it looks like in Word if I annotate a Word document and either send it to them as is or make it a PDF and send it to them?
So this is what the student sees. They see exactly as it appeared when I was doing the annotations in Canvas. Students also have the ability to download this and open this as a PDF outside of Canvas. So if they want to open it and print it and have it next to them, and it is going to appear just as you see it here.
So they'll download it, and what does it show up as a doc or?
It's as a PDF.
Okay, so it'll look exactly how it looks within Canvas.
Correct.
Thank you.
I downloaded it before. It doesn't have it running down the side. Like it doesn't.
It's very different because it's using a PDF comment protocol for commenting and track changes, which is why I had made the comment that the download as PDF and send it to them is like the student can't really get to it for whatever reason. You really want to keep them in Canvas to view all of your feedback.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it doesn't appear good.
Yeah.
And some of the, if you're doing some of the drawing annotations, actually depending on the student's PDF viewer, they won't even appear. So you really want to do it online unless there's the student can't.
A reason not to.
For some reason. Yeah.
And would that also mean if you are looking for students to use your feedback to revise, that it might be more efficient and better, more flexible, give the students more flexibility if you download those documents, add your notes and edits in Word, and then send it to them in Word, as opposed to having them use the interface of Canvas to do that.
But can I ask you, why is it any different having?
I was going to say, how is that? Yeah.
And online.
And how is that more efficient?
Well, they don't need an internet connection once they have the document that I send to them.
Correct. However, you will end up at least tripling the time it takes to download everything, re-annotate them in Word, and re-upload
Save
them back.
them, upload them back to the student. Yeah.
I see.
It's more time for you. Yeah. It's more time for you.
But it might make it more difficult for the student, that's all. But okay, it's a choice I have to make.
It's a choice, yeah. I would say there's no right or wrong. There's no best or better. It's a choice in what you're most comfortable with and what you find has been most helpful for your students.
Thank you.
I have a questions on how to make the discussions more efficient for engaging students. So from my experience, I find that the students, they tend to submit their postings when it's close to the due date. Let's say I put the due date is at the midnight, and then I see lots of postings happen around the 9 o'clock. Even I already post the discussions topic maybe 5 days ago. And I don't know why the students, they tended to wait till the last minute. And I find it's very difficult to ask the students to give a feedback to the other postings, because they told me that they haven't seen other group members postings till it's close to the due date. So this is the situations I face. I'm very curious about any of you who have some suggestions to avoid this.
Do you use multiple due dates where you require that the original post is due, you know, so if we're talking about a week and you're saying, so by Wednesday, everybody should have submitted their one original post. And then there's a secondary deadline by which they should respond, so that if everybody turns in that original response by Wednesday, then everybody can see and review everybody's work by midnight, even if they wait until the last minute to submit on Wednesday. And then you say the responses are due by Saturday, so that they have 2 days to now go back and look at the responses that were in on Wednesday and be able to respond by Saturday. So do you do the dual deadlines, or do you say everybody must post and reply by the same deadline?
So how do I set up the two different due dates?
So in Canvas, it's like we've got to do a couple of workarounds to do that. So if I'm in discussions and I create a discussion, it's going to be graded, so I can assign a due date. So if this, what I can do is I can say that, you know, original response is due Wednesday. So I would set that here. What I would then need to do is manually add to the calendar the due date for the 18th, where I say responses. So in my text here, in the instructions area, I would say to them, original response due Wednesday, replies due Saturday. And I could set the due date for the original here, and I would save. But then what I would need to do is manually go to the calendar. And I apologize because it always takes a minute to display the calendar when we go to it. Oh my goodness. So there's the original responses on the 15th, and then on the 18th, I would manually add an entry. An event, you know, you could also call it an assignment, right? And you would say test response to classmates, right? And then you would say the 18th. And so what it would do is it would add another entry to the calendar that would trigger the reminder to students so that you could have both due dates on the calendar. Yeah, so without splitting it that way and without putting those reminders on, you know, you would have to trust that they would read and follow the instructions that you've provided. And the notifications help. You're still probably going to have students who wait till the last minute and don't respond when you want them to. So you can try though, right?
Great, thank you.
We've got about, what, 5 more minutes, John? Did we really go to 11?
Regarding the assignments and the modules, I used to create assignments through assignments. Or do that. And now thinking about that, what John responds saying that what you created through assignments will not appear automatically in module.
No.
What you create through module can automatically appear in assignments.
Correct.
So does that mean that I should just forget about assignments, just use module and create all the assignments through modules? I don't know whether that's a dumb question because
Not a dumb question.
It's not.
It kind of depends on your process and how you build. If you build in modules, sometimes I feel it's faster to throw the structure up, and I can very quickly create the placeholder, so to speak, for the assignments that I need. But then later I might have to go back and fill in all of those details. What's the due date? What's the points? What are the instructions? You know, attach what files they may need to it. But if I did that all up front in the assignments page, then I could later come back to modules and very quickly add the assignments to the modules where I want them. It just depends on what process feels most comfortable to you, because I don't think one is better than the other.
When you create assignment through modules, and so does that actually leading you to the link of the assignment? Actually, you are still creating through assignments.
So when you create from modules, so if I want to add a new assignment here, I can click that plus sign. I have the option, what do I want to create? So I want to create an assignment. I want to create a new assignment. It allows me to give it a title and add it really quickly, but I haven't fleshed it out. I haven't given those details. To add those details, I actually have to click on that assignment and then go into edit to make the changes that I need.
That's where it leads actually to the assignments again.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I see. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? Well, thank you guys. Go, John, we're still recording.
Oh, let me go ahead and kill that.